Hey everyone, my name is Patrick and I'm the training manager here at OneLogin, and today I'm going to show you how to set up single sign-on for Salesforce in OneLogin. All right, so let's log in to OneLogin. And if you notice at the top, I have all of the tabs available to a super user, so an admin, except I have a few additional privileges as an account owner. I can also assume app sign-in, which means that after I assume a user, I can also sign into that application, which is what we're going to do during the testing phase. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to apps and then add apps. And then I'm going to type in Salesforce. And I'm going to select Salesforce when it appears. And that's that first one here, I guess second one rather, which is forms-based auth and SAML 2.0 with user provisioning. And we are going to be setting up SAML single sign-on, so make sure that that is selected at the bottom and then select Save. All right, the first thing we're going to do is head to the Configuration tab. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to enter the Salesforce login URL. Now this requires the org ID from Salesforce. One thing to note is that if you are using multiple IDPs, so multiple identity providers, e.g. OneLogin. So if you're using OneLogin as an identity provider, maybe you're using Salesforce as an identity provider, maybe some other company as well, then you'll need to use the consumer URL, which is in the SAML configuration screen. And so that's going to be a different URL than what we're going to be entering here, which is more straightforward directly to the org ID that we're going to. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head on over to Salesforce and grab the org ID. All right, here in Salesforce, I'm in the Setup panel, and I'm going to head on over to the left-hand side under Company Profile, and I'm going to select Company Information. And if you have any experience in Salesforce, company information is where you're going to keep things like the name of the organization, the currency, the locale, all the sort of default settings for your org. And I'm going to grab the org ID, which is the specific identification for this instance of Salesforce. And I'm going to highlight it and copy it. And now I'm going to head back to OneLogin, and we're going to enter that Salesforce login URL. All right, back in Salesforce, I'm going to paste in the org ID, and I'm going to copy and paste the remainder of this URL there. And we're going to grab everything up until it says org ID, because that's what we just grabbed from Salesforce. Copy that. We're going to paste it here. Make sure there is no space here. One of the things that I've noticed is if you copy and paste the HTTPS in and then copy and paste the org ID in, sometimes there'll be a space between the equal sign and the org ID, and that'll cause a failure. So just be cognizant of that. And we're going to select Save. All right, next I want to head to the Parameters tab because I want to make sure that for your existing users that you already have in Salesforce, right, that those users' Salesforce user ID matches up to the email that we have here in OneLogin. And that's something that I always mention when I'm talking about setting up SAML single sign-on for the first time. And it's really, really important because if you have two different things here, you have an existing user who has a different email set up than their email in OneLogin, then they won't be able to go through that process of single sign-on. You'll need to either update OneLogin or update Salesforce with the same email address. All right, now that we've talked about that, I'm going to head on up to the SSO tab. And I am going to start taking some of this information here and pasting it into Salesforce. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the SAML signature algorithm, that's the secure hash algorithm, to 256. And so I'll click on SHA-256, and I am going to select Save. But we're not done yet. We actually need to head back to the SSO tab and then download the X509 certificate. And we also need to grab the issuer URL in the SAML 2.0 endpoint. So let's first download the X509 certificate. So click on View Details. And then we're going to click on Download right here. Now, some applications want the X509 certificate. Some applications prefer the SHA fingerprint. So if you are using an application that would rather have the SHA fingerprint, then you can definitely use that as well. You would just need to change it to whatever encryption that application wants. So whether it's 256 or SHA-1, copy the fingerprint and place it into the application. Most applications support the X509 certificate, which is a PIM, a certificate file that you upload, which Salesforce does. So I'm going to use that. All right, so let's head back and let's go to the SSO tab one more time, and we're going to copy the issuer URL. And now I'm ready to head on over to Salesforce. All right, here we are back in Salesforce, and you can see that we left off grabbing the org ID here on the company information page. Now I need to head to security controls, which is right underneath company profile, and then single sign-on settings. And if we scroll down, we should see that. Oh, here it is, single sign-on settings. And the first thing I'm going to do is enable federated single sign-on using SAML. So click on Edit here, and then check this box, and then click Save. So once we enable SAML, then we can create a record for our identity provider. So I'm going to click on New, and I'm going to call it, and really you can call it whatever you want. This is just the name of the record, which will then populate the API name. I'm just going to call it OneLogin and keep it simple. And now we need to enter the issuer as well as the entity ID. So the issuer is the issuer URL that we just copied. So I'm going to paste that in here. And the entity ID is going to be saml.salesforce.com. I'm just going to enter HTTPS, and I've entered it before so you can see that it's available in autofill, but it's https://saml.salesforce.com. So select that. And what we're going to do next is change the signature method here to SHA-256, which is what we're using. And we're going to leave the assertion contains user's salesforce.com username. It is going to contain the username, and that's what we want to match on. And we're also going to say that the identity is in the name identifier element of the subject statement. So we're basically saying, this is how I'd like you to look for information in the SAML assertion. And now we need to paste in one more field, which is the identity provider login URL. You could also have a logout URL or a custom error URL. So first of all, I need to add the identity provider login URL. So I need to head back to OneLogin and grab that SAML 2.0 endpoint. All right, here we are back in OneLogin. So I'm going to grab the SAML 2.0 endpoint. I'm going to copy to clipboard. You could also highlight all of this in Command-C or Control-C, whatever you'd like. And let's go paste this into the login URL in Salesforce. All right, here we are back in Salesforce. Let me paste this in. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to upload my X509 certificate. And we kind of skipped over that. You could have done that immediately as well. So now I'm going to select Save. And we have all of the information we need to set up single sign-on and to allow our users to sign in. And so at this point, I'm going to head on over to Manage Users and then Users. And here we have Susie Yamao, and that's who I'm going to be testing with today. And Susie's email address does match the email address that we have in OneLogin, so I know that those parameters meet up, and I'll be able to sign in with Susie successfully. So at this point, I'm going to head back to OneLogin, and we'll start our testing.